stars, cars, guitars. Coming up.
This was a dream as a kid, you know, watching Top of the Pops, thinking, wow, I'd love to be on Top of the Pops. And all of a sudden I am. And I'm doing it. And you know what it's like? It's such a fickle industry. You think to yourself, am I going to last 5 years, 10 years? 20 is pretty good. And when, you know, we've been in it a long time now and we're still doing it, which is great.
Yeah, and I still love it.
God, I'm being really honest here. And it's like therapy, isn't it?
This is Stars, Cars, Guitars with Tony Hadley, Jim Cregan, and Alex Dyke.
Are you with me, guys?
We are. We are. Hello, chaps. How are you?
Yeah. Hello, Tony.
Tone, listen, last time we did this, you said you met Frank Sinatra when you were 17. Now, by the age of 17, you were not famous, and I don't think you had your record contract then. So how on earth did you, as a fan, I'm guessing, meet Frank Sinatra? When, where, and how long for? What's the story?
Right. The story behind this is massive Sinatra fan because of my mum and dad and everything. And I used to work for IPC magazines. And I realized that if you took the label of an IPC magazine and typed on it, I think it was Anthony Holden, journalist, melody maker, IPC magazines, did a squiggly signature, stuck it to the inside of your jacket, you could pretty much go anywhere you wanted. Anthony Holden, IPC. Anthony Holden turns out to be an author, which I didn't know. And so that's how I got into the Royal Albert Hall. So I went to the first night, and then the second night I took my mum. And there was a point where I realized Frank Sinatra just went off the stage. Now, me and my mum had great seats. There was 2 empty seats, which I saw from the gods. I thought, right, we're going to go down there. And of course, my mum, because I said, look, Mum, I'll sort the tickets out. And when she realized that I'd literally just blagged it, she wasn't exactly most pleased, put it that way. So we're sitting there, Michael Caine's down there, Roger Moore, all the stars, and we're literally sitting on the side of the stage. This is like, I'm in my element. I'm 17, I'm a young awake, you know, in a band. And as Frank Sinatra left the stage, I literally just sort of shot 10, 12 feet to the exit, and there he was surrounded by all his chaps. And I said, excuse me, Mr. Sinatra. I mean, you know, more front than Sainsbury's, Tesco's, or anywhere, you know. And I someone sort of pushed me out of the way, held me back. And then I sort of stuck my hand in, and he said, oh, hold a second. Oh, hi, son, how you doing? I said, Mr. Sinatra, I just want to say what a great concert. It's fantastic. I've come with my mum, you know, it was really brilliant. And he said, oh, son, he said, it's nice to see some young people coming to the show, which is what I say to young kids now at my age. And he said, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm at school, but I'm in a band, and it's my ambition to one day be a singer, a professional singer. And one day I'd love to play the Albert Hall. And he said, well, son, listen, I hope all your dreams come true. And he shook my hand again. And I thanked him and went back to my mum, who was can't tell you how envious she was. And that was the moment. Fast forward 6 years later to 1983, and there we were as Spandau Ballet doing a sound check at the Royal Albert Hall. So I'd said to Frank Sinatra, it's my ambition to one day play at the Royal Albert Hall, and there I was 6 years later. But the other thing is that I'm driving along in the car, and we've got security with us. Alfie Weaver's company, bless him, lovely man. And I'm looking at this fella, silver-haired fella, because he was the one that threw me out eventually. And I said, do you look after Frank Sinatra? He said, yeah. He said, yeah, we look after Frank whenever he comes over and everything else. I said, you're the sod that kicked me out on the third night. And there he was, years later, protecting me. Because the night after, I went again to see Frank Sinatra, and literally we had a running match. They'd figured out what I was doing, so they were chasing me around the Royal Albert Halls. Me and my best pal, Pete Hillier. So,
wow, that is an amazing story, Tony.
Great story, yeah.
Just before we go over to Jim, what I often think, and I often ask people this when I'm interviewing them, is Frank Sinatra probably heard and probably knew of True, and maybe through the barricades. So he probably heard your song, and, you know, with a little bit more like, maybe he would have covered it, because he covered a lot of songs. But do you ever think about the stars, the mega stars who may have been humming along to you singing True?
Here's another story. I just remembered this one. So I'm in the Dorchester, and I was at a do at the Dorchester, and I've got in the lift. And just previous to this, I'd been with there was a party in the park, Hyde Park, with Tom Jones and Tony Christie and Michael Ball, and we've been singing with the Elvis Presley band and the BBC Orchestra. So that was a couple of days previous, or maybe there's a day before, I don't know. So I gets in the lift, and Priscilla Presley was there, and so I get in the lift, and there's Neil Sedaka and his wife. And you know when you're in the lift and you think, that's Neil Sedaka, but I don't want to say anything. But in the end, I said, excuse me. I said, are you Neil Sedaka? He went, yes, I am, Neil Sedaka. I said, wow. I said, wow, it's such an honor to meet you and your wife. I said, this is my wife, Ali. And I said, this is amazing. I said, you won't know who I am. I said, I'm a singer. I've just been in Hyde Park with Tom Jones, Priscilla Presley. I know Priscilla. She's a great friend of mine. I know this business. And anyway, so I said, I was in a band called Spandau Ballet. You might know True. True is one of my favorite songs. And I was like, Neil Sedaka, it's brilliant. And he was so complimentary and so lovely. And I just thought that was a nice moment, because he's what an amazing songwriter. Incredible.
Yeah.
Neil Sedaka.
Yeah, yeah.
Jim, have you got any moments like that? Because, you know, you were, when you were in the Rod Stewart band, you were writing, you were producing hits, and maybe it's other work. And, you know, Beatles have listened to you and heard your music. That, to me, I can't get my head around.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioning that to Tony about people that would have heard True and all this, it's never really occurred to me who listens to it or who doesn't. I've got some embarrassing stories about that, though. I had a nice romance in America with a girl who was a musician and an Irish whistle and fiddle player, and after we'd been going out a while, she revealed to me that the song because I co-wrote a song called Forever Young, which is a very big hit in America and still earns a shilling for me. And she admitted to me once over lunch, just after I'd gone in to meet her at this restaurant, and the maitre d' had said, yes, sir, your daughter is waiting at the table for you, which was slightly annoying. Well, no, she was in her 30s, early 30s, but I was in my sort of late 50s or something like that. But anyway, and she said to me, yes, Forever Young, I remember that song. That was the theme for our high school prom. And if ever there was a moment I wished I had written, it was that. So these things happen.
Jim, I've got one that happened just a while ago. So the young girl came up to me at festival when we were doing festivals and said, oh, excuse me, could you sign? I said, oh, is it for your mum? She went, no, it's for my grandmother.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, thanks a lot. Cheers.
So when my lovely daughter, who's in the next room, Ava Cregan, was born, I was 59 or maybe 60, right? And her mother, I will not disclose her age because she won't like that. But she was definitely an older mum. And she's in Kingston Hospital and everybody's doing fine. And I go to one of those little stations where you can get a cup of tea, and I'm standing there and another woman walks over and she said, how's your daughter doing? Oh, I said, oh, she's doing fine. She said, and how's the baby? And I said, the baby is my daughter. She looked at me. At that moment, one of the few occasions I wished I was Rod Stewart, because he's allowed to have children when he's in his 60s, but apparently I'm not. So I would always get that in the park. You know, I'd be there with my daughter and they'd say, oh, your granddaughter's very cute. I say, I haven't got one.
Tone, Jim is an amazing guy, and sometimes I'm listening to songs and I ring Jim up and I say, look, I'm listening to a song and you produced it or you wrote it, and I either knew it or I was just reconfirming to Jim what a great track it was. And it happened last week. We were on the phone for about an hour talking about some of his work.
Yeah.
But what's really weird for me is I can remember being in Fort Myers Beach in Florida, watching VH1 when they said, here comes the new single from Rod Stewart, Forever Young. And I can remember where I was, and I can even remember it was introduced by Peter Noon. It was a kind of a video jock on VH1. And I can remember the video and the footprint or the impression that Jim's music has left on my heart is absolutely magnificent. And I'm not just talking about Rod Stewart, I'm talking about Linda Lewis and Cockney Rebel and, you know, and other stuff in between. Jim is a legend and we love him, don't we?
he is, Jim, he's a legend.
That's so sweet of you, Alex. That's really kind.
It's incredible what you've done, Jim, to be honest, and what you've written.
I've survived.
And you know what? This is your life. Just when you thought he was saying, this is your life.
God, what a horrible shock that would be.
Oh, yeah, to go, Eamon
Andrews.
Eamon Andrews, that was it, with the big red book.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was legendary, he was, though, wasn't he?
He was, and those shows actually were quite interesting. When there were some quite touching moments when old friends would be flown in from Australia to see their pal and give them a hug. It was quite a nice concept for a show. I remember watching those. Robin Le Mesurier, who's one of my dearest friends, plays guitar.
Yeah, I know Robin.
His father, John Le Mesurier, they did one of those, and I saw it. He was on it. He was in short trousers, I think, when his father won that award of getting Eamon Andrews to do This Is Your Life. And and of course I'm looking at it now, 40 years after it came out, and it was quite interesting to see what kind of life he had, because he had two famous parents, John Le Mesurier and Hattie Jakes was his mum.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that good for him at school. He got bullied at school because he had famous parents, which was something I never would have thought. But he said it was quite nasty. People were horrible to him because they said, I suppose you think you're something special, don't you? Your dad's on the telly, and all that stuff, and we get sort of smacked about a bit. Not good.
Yeah, I don't think sometimes as parents we realise quite what our kids have gone through at times, because I know what I was like as a kid. I had a flipping pretty tough time at school at times, and but I never told my parents. I just dealt with it internally, and I think a lot of kids are like that. They think, I'm not going to go home crying to my mum and dad. I'll just deal with it. And I think certainly kids of famous parents sometimes. Well, you see the troubles that they have sometimes with drugs or drink or getting into trouble and stuff. So everyone thinks that we all live in a lovely fluffy bubble, and we don't.
Tom, what was the problem at school? Because I would imagine at school, I mean, you're a lovely looking lad, so I'd imagine you're popular, you're tall. I would imagine you could have looked after yourself. What were your problems at school?
Maths.
Maths. Have I told you this story?
No. It's my job to interrupt. I'm the interrupter of the group.
Well, maths is. So I went to Dame Alice great grammar school, very, established 1613, huge traditions and everything else. And in the second year, I had a particular teacher called Mr. Copping, and he hated my guts. He absolutely hated me, and would find any excuse. And in the end, I found any excuse not to be in his lesson. So more often than not, he would kick me out, and I'd end up down at seeing Mrs. Williams, the caretaker's wife. And she'd go, "Been kicked out again, darling?" I said, "Yeah, Mrs. Williams. Do you want a cup of tea and a biscuit?" "Oh, thanks, Mrs. Williams." I'd sit down and have a chat. So that's why maths is not my forte as such. I'm not very good at it. I mean, this guy he didn't like me at all. Absolutely. And he used to wear like an old demob suit with kind of gravy stained tie, and he used to smoke a pipe with sort of blackened teeth, and just was yo boy, it was real kind of like Tom Brown school days, and it just had a big effect on what was happening at school, and it sort of filtered through to the kids and stuff like that. So in the end, I found I was getting into a lot of trouble. So
you weren't bullied by other pupils, but you were kind of bullied by a teacher.
I was bullied by a teacher, but that filtered through to the kids in terms of what they would say to me. So I wasn't bullied physically. And in the end, I did get very physical about it, and then got a bit of a reputation for, anyone said the slightest thing to me, and it was like, poof. And of course, God, I'm being really honest here. And it's like therapy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But what happened was we amalgamated with a girls' school, and a lot of the girls thought I was a psycho. and then I had to kind of go, look, I'm actually really nice. I'm actually really cool, a really nice chap. But it was just something that I went through at school, and I got through it. It was fine. I didn't tell my parents or anything. I just dealt with it, and that wasn't because I had famous parents or anything like that. It was just because a particular teacher didn't like me. But what it did do, and this is it's really weird. When I look at a lot of people that are in the music business or the acting world or whatever, and you look at what's happened to them, there's a lot of similarities, because it made me the most determined person on the planet that I would succeed and that I would prove this guy wrong one day. So in a lot of ways, he almost did me a favor, which is kind of a bit weird, really.
No, I understand that. I get it. I was thinking that, so one of the things that I noticed, now my daughter is at a very nice school here in Christchurch called Twynham, and most of the teachers are great. I mean, it's a good school, and she's very happy there. But there are the occasions when I hear about moments where it seems to me that the teachers don't actually like children. And it's occurred to me that one of the important things so you want to be a teacher, right? Okay, fair enough. This is a bit like if you want to be a soldier and you're afraid of loud noises, it's not a good idea. So I thought that they should, one of the things, before you're allowed to qualify as a teacher, or before you even go into the university, you should take a psychological test to see if you actually like other human beings, and especially other young human beings, or if you're a sociopath, or if you really don't like children, you can't stand it, but you want the job because the money's good or the holidays are nice. So I think it would be really smart for them to be some sort of filtering system whereby, actually, sir or madam, you're not cut out to be a teacher because you don't have the right, shall we say, social skills or the ability to empathize with young people, or even care about them one little bit, other than a means for you to have 6 weeks holiday in the summer. That's not the reason to be a teacher. I think, and so all you people from the government that aren't listening, there's my message to you today.
But don't you think, I hear that, Jim, I hear that, but parents are a lot more involved now. Tone and I were at school at the same time, and I never told my parents anything, but they were called up to school a couple of times because of my behaviour. But I can remember, and this is one of my favourite stories, being at school, and I was in the bottom band at school. There was band 1, band 2, and band 3, and I was in band 3 because obviously because of my dyslexia, not because I didn't feel bright, but I kind of felt bright, but I couldn't really read and write. It was a bit confusing. But I can remember going into a woodwork class, and a teacher called Mr. Woodcock, who was a great teacher, honestly, who, funnily enough, sent his kids to the sent his kids to the private school, which was weird. But anyway, when we used to get into that class, we're about 15, 16 at the time, he would say, "Oh no, here they come, the band 3 loons. Put away all the sharp tools. They're only going to cut themselves."
Oh.
And I remember thinking it was hilarious. I got the joke. I wasn't going to go and phone social services or tell another teacher because it was blinking funny. And he said it in a fun, but you would never say that now.
Going back to the teacher thing, Jim, there are, I think you're right, there are probably some teachers that I don't know, maybe they're not just cut out for it, you know, maybe it was just something they fell into. But then there are so many teachers. Apart from this one chap, I had so many teachers at my school who did genuinely care. I had a great Mr. Clark who was really amazing at sorting things out. And I remember our English teacher, Mr. Sparrow. So there was some really fantastic teachers. I was just unlucky with this guy. He didn't. For some reason, I was 6'2", 6'3", something like that. I was really tall for my age, and he just didn't like me. And so, but I had a lot of good tea and biscuits, which was nice. So Mrs. Williams was always wonderful company. She really was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to denigrate the teaching profession in any way here. Quite honestly, I think that the teachers at the school where Ava goes are fantastic. They really, really are good. And they're she's just had a major spinal operation, and they couldn't be more caring and more helpful to make sure that she's comfortable and all right. And if she doesn't feel well, she can just come home. It's not a big deal. But my experience at school was there were some teachers that were really helpful, and it's the same for you. There were some people that were you felt they didn't really want to be there. They certainly didn't want you there. I remember in a hospital in LA where one of my other children was born, and I was lurking about there around the nurses' station. That sounds terrible. And there was a notice saying the patients are not interrupting your work; they are your work. Because you push that buzzer to call the nurse, and she's going, well, I was busy doing a chart or whatever. No, they explained that was the patients were their work, and I thought it was a good idea because, as you know, some people feel put upon by being asked to do the thing they're asked to do. It's a bit like saying to you, "Do you mind going on and singing out?" And you go, "Well, I have to."
The trouble is with me, Jim. Once I start, I can't stop. I said, "I'll do more songs if you want. I'm happy to." I think the thing is that we're blessed because we love what we do. People say to me, they say, "Well, do you get bored?" Because there are some artists, for instance, who get to the point they cannot stand being on the road. They don't like the traveling. They don't like it. They lose their confidence. And I have to pinch myself because I think to myself, wow, I'm still doing this after 40 years, and I'm still getting booked and getting lots of bookings as well. Mm. And this was a dream as a kid, watching Top of the Pops, thinking, wow, I'd love to be on Top of the Pops, and all of a sudden I am, and I'm doing it, and you know what it's like, it's such a fickle industry. You think to yourself, am I going to last 5 years, 10 years? 20 is pretty good. And when, we've been in it a long time now, and we're still doing it, which is great.
Yeah, and I still love it. The only thing that I think about now is that I don't really fancy the idea of a hugely extended tours. I think we talked about this before. I did 10 months on the Unplugged tour with Rod, and that was hard because you're away, you're missing your kids and your family and everything. I don't want to do those anymore. But other than that, a short burst of out around Europe or to America for a few weeks, I love it. I just love it. I love the stepping on the stage. To me, is one of the great thrills of my life, because you even though I've been doing it for how many years now? Time is it 20 past 3. So I still feel the same adrenaline, and the bigger the crowd, the more the adrenaline. That, and how exciting it is to have that as a job. It's great. I love it. I'm blessed beyond words.
We tend not to do more than about 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, because a lot of the band, TH band, we've all got young kids anyway. So, and even with Spandau, actually, we never went on a 10-month block tour. We'd always do kind of 6 to 8 weeks or 3 months, and then have some time at home, because otherwise when you're on the road constantly, you just kind of you lose all perspective of everything. I think.
Stars, Cars, Guitars. Subscribe. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and starscarsguitars.co.uk.
There's a great. What was the? There's a great story. I love listening to those things they have on radio, like songwriters and stuff like that. And there was, there's like, it's the same old song, just a different tune since you've been gone. Very famous tune. Well, the first song that they had that was a hit. They basically said, look, just write the same song, and they just changed a couple of chords and then called it the same old song. And I heard this on the radio, and I just thought, I love stuff like that. Absolutely fascinating how people come to different songs, and or people might hear a sort of a song and almost nick the sort of chords and everything else, just put a different melody on top. Brilliant.
Well, the Stock Aitken and Waterman, I remember now, I've never listened to a Stock Aitken and Waterman album deliberately, but I was in the Hairdressers one day, and they played the whole of this album. And because I'm a songwriter, I happened to notice that the bridge of the first song was the verse of the second song, and then a bit further into the album, the chorus of song 4 was the bridge of song 9. And they just had like a certain number of bits, and they just slotted them around and made another song out of it. I couldn't. It was really strange. I thought, good on you, lads. Just don't expect me to listen to it.
I don't know if I've told you that. I don't know if I've told you the story, but. And I hope Rick doesn't mind. Rick, if you're watching this, I hope you don't mind, mate. We were doing a festival, and my band were basically the house band with a couple of extras. So myself was doing it, Rick Astley was doing it, various other artists. So Rick's on stage, dig, 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 dig. So he starts singing away, half a third of the way through. Hold it a minute. Oh, it's not. I'm singing those are the wrong lyrics. This is wrong song. This is wrong song. And Rick was laughing because the two tunes were so similar. And he's a good lad though. He sometimes swept the stage up behind me when I've been on, puts the old brown coat on, and then comes sweeping the stage.
Does he really? Oh, I love it.
And Rick, to be honest, Rick he's a right top fella, right good laugh he is. But when this happened and all the band had to stop and then do the other dig 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 dig. And then he sang the right lyric. Pretty well what I was saying. Yeah, brilliant.
Hey Jim, didn't Chuck Berry say if you write a great song, write it again?
Yes, I have heard that about him. Yeah, he never said it to me because he didn't want to talk to me anyway. But yeah, I've heard that. But just apropos of Tony talking about this sweeping up on the stage afterwards, a couple of funny things happened with me. One time I was on tour with a girl called Jennifer Rush, a big hit called "The Power of Love," and I just kind of I think I needed the money, so I took. She offered me loads of money to go tour Germany, and there was a big guitar solo in one of her tunes, and the crew, bless them, they said, "Listen, Jim, while as the solo finishes, we're going to give you a vote of what we thought of it, right?" And I said, "Okay," and it sounded like a bit of fun. And they said, "But we're going to do it by rolling a tennis ball across the stage with a number on it, right?" And so every night I'd wait for this tennis ball to go, and it never. He said it'll be out of 10. I never got one that was more than 2.
They only had 2 tennis balls. Guys, I'm going to have to call time on this now, not because I'm not enjoying it, but because there's simply not enough of me in this one. So
yeah, I was thinking that.
Let's rearrange, come back next week and make it all about me.
I'm happy about that. I won't even show up. That's how happy I'm about it.
Oh, thanks.
I do sometimes. I think to myself, I said, "God, Tone, shut up, will you?" But we do love a chat. But Alex, I love your stories.
Me too.
But no, Alex, you've met some incredible people. You've met some massive, massive stars.
You've met Tone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you met Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I think, I tell you what, I've always been, and probably Tone, because maybe you and I had similar experiences at school, I've always been a bit of a hustler, because I knew if I didn't push myself, no one else was going to push me, and I wasn't going to do it academically. And I think now that I've worked in local and regional radio for all of my career, never national radio, but when I think that I've been to Stevie Wonder's party, after show party at Wembley, and I've sat in the dressing room with B.B. King, and he sat there with Lucille's guitar, and he's told me stories, and I just hung out with so many amazing people just by being a chancer. And I actually think that, just getting back to schools very quickly, we really should teach children and youngsters about the gift of the gab, and about being confident and pushing yourself. Because if you are not academically clever, that's an important skill set that can help push you through life.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. It's, you know, when it comes to choosing somebody to be in the band with you, which is, you know, that happens quite often in our careers, it's more important that the person that you're bringing into your team, or your family as it becomes, really, is a good guy or a good girl, and fun and kind and somewhat decent, not particularly fully decent, because that would go against the grain. But the idea that they're good people, and they're not, there's nothing worse than being stuck in a car or on a bus or on a plane for hours with somebody who's really, really dull. Dull is just absolutely not allowed. It's not allowed. So you say the gift of the gab, very important indeed.
I mean, I have to pinch myself sometimes, because, you know,
you're not dull, Tony. You're not. No matter what they say, you're not dull. You're close.
Thanks very much, Jim. Thank you. I mean, when you think about, you know, I was in Spandau Ballet, and for many years we had an amazing time, great time, and everything else. But I'm so lucky to do what I call the fabulous TH band. And we're all great mates, and we have a Zoom every Tuesday with my band and the crew, and we get on so well. We have a lot of fun together, and we're just good friends. And I really think I'm a lucky boy, really do.
Yeah, you are, and so am I. Alex, on the other hand.
Time out, guys. Time out. See you next week.
Okay. And just before we go, Alex, I would like the listener, that one person that listens to this podcast, I'd like them to know that the whole reason that we're here is because you said we can do this. You and Tom Stroud. If it hadn't been for you two, neither Tony nor I or Matt would be having any fun doing this. We'd just be doing whatever I'd be doing now normally, which would be down the shops, picking up something for lunch or dinner. So thanks to you and Tom that we've got this, and we've got this huge opportunity to have fun.
It's good. I've got to say, Jim, I completely agree. And then sometimes I worry, I think, well, what are we going to talk about? But we always find something to talk about.
We haven't even had a beer.
No, imagine what it's like when we got, exactly.
The pub, yeah.
Listen, great to see you guys, and thanks
you
to
too,
Tom. Cheers. We'll do a mailbag next week, Tom. We should do a mailbag, definitely.
Stars, Cars, Guitars was produced by Tom Stroud.